All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name's Brian Alberry. I'm the founder of ChiroSpring, and we have a special guest with us, Dr. Larry Lowen, who was with us on our show last month. So we have an awesome show for you guys today. We're going to talk about 3 ways to scale your practice. So this is applicable no matter who you are. If you're just getting started, if you just graduated, maybe you're buying a practice, you're taking over. Even if you have a really successful practice, Dr. Larry is going to share his story, his insight, and give you 3 ways to scale your practice. So you're definitely going to want to stay till the end of the show for that. Before we get started, I do want to go over a couple housekeeping things. First of all, you can say hi in the chat. We always love hearing from our guests. So comment in the chat. Love to know where you're from. If you have questions during the event, you can post those there as well, and we'll try to get to a Q&A at the end to make sure we cover all of that information for you. We are recording today's session, so if you have to step out for a patient or something like that, not to worry. We will send the full recording after the show via email, so you will have that to watch at your convenience. And following up on this, we do send a survey, so we always want to hear your feedback. All right, without further ado, our special guest today, Dr. Larry Lowen. Go ahead, Dr. Larry, tell us a little bit of your background. Where are you from? Where did you go to school? How long have you been in practice?
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and hello, everybody. So Dr. Larry Lowen Jr., I'm a junior. Dad happens to be a dentist, both doctors. It sometimes messes things up when we get mail, even though we're distances apart. Went to school at Life Chiropractic in Marietta, Georgia, graduated in 2001, and I've been in practice. If you do the math, it looks like 24 years, but I've actually been in practice for just over 20 because I had about a 3-year corporate stint there. So all told, about 20 years in practice.
All right, fantastic. Now, last month we had a great show, Why I Switched to EHRs. You were able to tell us your story, why you decided to make the transition to ChiroSpring, but just give us a little brief review on our last show.
Absolutely. Yeah, after 20 years of being in practice, it's functionally speaking, my software was working just fine. There were some hiccups, some things that, I thought, well, I can overlook this and I can just kind of carry through the rest of my career. We were collecting fine. But I thought I'm going to look out in the market just to see what's out there. I get emails from promotions for different companies. And so I did about a 6-month due diligence because I thought from an operational standpoint, I know that there's some things that I could improve, internal, external, and my eyes were opened. I hadn't realized how far technology had come, even for what I was using, is to make life easier on the us chiropractors. And so I spent about 6 months interviewing different companies. And I found that at the top of the list was ChiroSpring, and really just checked off all of the boxes, and finally decided to make the switch midsummer. We're about 3 months in now, and I can't tell you how happy I am that we made the switch. So basically,
Awesome.
if you're just starting out, if I had this when I first started out in practice, a lot of things would have been a lot easier. So I'm very thankful for ChiroSpring. They're great people on top of it. My staff really enjoys talking to them, and they're very quick to respond on things that you need to get help through. And the workflow is just improved, and we couldn't be happier with ChiroSpring. So, it's kind of one of those things where we get kind of a little stuck in our ways when we're 20 years in practice and you don't really want to change. But like Nicole had mentioned before, who's one of the ChiroSpring employees I talked to initially, is pull off the Band-Aid. And I'm glad I did, because it's really healed up some wounds that we had that I suspected, but now that those are getting healed up. So that's kind of the main gist of the webinar and show we had last month.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's really easy to get set in your ways, and the technology that we have today, I mean, like you said, the new graduates today have a massive advantage over what you did 20 years ago when you're starting. So, everything from just patient engagement to the ease of documentation. And of course, we're adding some AI features in our platform here very soon. So we are really going next level to make sure, and that's, kind of where you're tying this webinar into, making it easy for you, making it, how can we scale your practice? And, so let's just kind of kick over to that topic and stop talking about EHRs. I want to know, Dr. Larry, what let's just start with the definition of business and scaling business, right? When we're scaling our practice, we need to first understand the definition of scale.
Yeah, I think starting off, it'll set the premise right and help us build, because what I'm going to go over today is going to be different than what I know as a chiropractor, and I can say that now after being in the business this long, of what we're typically told and promoted to do to scale our businesses. And how I've done it is definitely different, and you're going to hear that as this develops. But let's start off with the definition. So to scale in business or in practice means to achieve substantial growth in revenue and output without proportional increase in costs, resources, and personnel. It's a beautiful definition. It frames it in perfectly. And I just grabbed that as I was looking up, okay, what's a great definition to fit and start this whole theme with. And that's the key, is how can we as chiropractors, without adding all overhead, extra staff, what can we do to scale our practices so it's net profitable for us and also great for the patient as well too? And so that's kind of the definition I wanted you to keep in the back of your mind as I build this show, to help you understand how I've been able to do that. And as I've told my wife in conversation, I would love for chiropractors to know that this is possible. It's going to require a little rewiring. So heads up, it's coming, incoming. I'm letting you know, no curveballs. And if there is a curveball, it's coming. But that's kind of what the essence of this show is going to be built around.
And with the rewiring, it's one of those things where you're taught a certain way, or maybe you've gone to seminars and you've learned certain things. And so, as you said, let's kind of learn your methods and how you were able to scale. So, in your experience, Dr. Larry, typically, what are the ways? What are the ways that chiropractors today, new and experienced, are taught to scale their practices?
Yeah. And so what I did is I went to my email bin that I've had for 25 years, and I did a keyword search, and I typed in chiropractic marketing. And my email bin lit up with a whole bunch of emails that I either never looked at or never deleted. And across the board, and this is up to even yesterday, was all the things that we are told to sell, do, and try to pump out to the public as far as growing our practice goes. And it ranges. The one that's off the top of my mind yesterday was shockwave therapy. How to implement shockwave therapy to your patients. That was one of them. Of course, and to increase revenue. There's the laser. There's supplements. There's, chiropractic consultants that are trying to tell you how to do your report of findings to sell more report of findings. It's just this constant theme that's going there. I was just looking through, and I could almost bracket them off into these other buckets that would all been roughly the same 5 things that I've seen for 20 years. Robocalls, guaranteeing a certain number of patients to land in your books every single month, new patients.
Please, no, not robocalls.
Oh, yeah, I get that one probably 2 or 3 times a week.
Oh, man.
Is the robocall. We guarantee you only pay if they show up. And that has been going on, like I said, even since I first started out in practice. I'm still getting that today. So the company names have changed, but the tactics and what we're told to do is about the same. And, maybe there's a few, maybe a different laser that's out there. Maybe there's a different, little gizmo gadget thing, but it's that kind of stuff that I think we can all agree upon that hits our email inboxes, and it is also part of the seminars. When we go to these seminars, they're there too. And I do want to qualify this. This isn't necessarily, it sounds like I'm starting off with a negative, and in a way, yes, it is, because what I want to do is turn that into a positive to help tap into this huge market of people that want to be in your office but aren't coming in, and it's for some of these reasons. So, but I've got to handle the negative up front first, because it's handling that, recognizing that actually I pivoted away from all that over 18 years ago, and that's what has scaled my practice, and it's possible for anybody. So that's it. It's these repackaged things that I just keep seeing over and over again, and it's targeted for a certain subset of the public, and everybody's clamoring for that subset of the public to get these patients through the door.
And just so we're clear, you're not against shockwave supplements. Those things are still fine. You just want to educate the listeners on how to scale without the salesy tactics. Is that right?
Yeah, if we can just kind of keep our knee-jerk emotional side at bay for the next 50 minutes or so, and just hit with the logic of this, I think we're all going to be just fine. And it's
Mhm.
that logic, I think, that's going to start to resonate. And so let's just get past that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's people that do well with lasers and things like that. But in besides all that, if you have that stuff or you're interested in that stuff, how can you utilize some of the tools I'm going to give you today with that in
Right.
mind?
So this still applies to everybody.
Oh yeah.
So, so in general, what is your practice like, Dr. Larry? What are some of the nuts and bolts of your practice?
So 1,000 square foot office. I've got one staff that works with me while I'm here. So basically one front desk staff. I have one treatment room, and
Mhm.
I have one office, which is my studio that I'm using right now too for meetings and for pre-recordings on my radio show that I have. Um, I was kind of, I'm a blue collar chiropractor, which means is I have basic flexion table, drop table, and I use my hands and a massager. That is it. That's what I use for my patients that come into the office. So I have no supplements up front. Really kind of a basic nuts and bolts office. Our office has buzzes all day long. I have the phone rings throughout the day. I have more patients than I have spots, and I have reactivations that happen all the time without me prompting them. So we don't actually send out reminders. We don't send out, as far as like reactivations goes, we don't send out birthday notices. If somebody hasn't been in a while, if they don't hear from us, we basically just wait to hear from them. So that's kind of how my office runs. It's a very seamless, low stress, but hardworking office that really kind of checks off all the boxes. I come in the office, I click on the lights, phone rings, answering. We see patients. I do report of findings, care plans. I just texted a primary care doc right before we got on here about a case, and so it's just kind of this flow. I turn off the lights and then I go home and do some paperwork, and if I need to, and that's it. That's the nuts and bolts of my office. So it's a very low overhead,
Mhm.
highly profitable office, I guess, is the fundamental key.
Sounds a little bit, I don't want to say laid back, but it sounds like a nice place to be just from the way you're describing it.
My office desk says it's lively, but also comfortable, and that's
Mhm.
exactly it. It's the office that I go is the one that feels very natural and not artificial. So again, my front desk doesn't do any marketing for me. I don't do any of these strong tactics to get people to stay for care. None of that happens. And so it's a very low stress office that way. Although it's busy, and managing these people and what they have going on and what they come in with is kind of where the big challenge is, but it's a fun challenge. And that's kind of where the essence of the nuts and bolts of the office is. I work on stuff that people want to work on as far as a chiropractor goes.
Makes perfect sense. So over the past few years, then, what has your growth been like?
So it's quite simply doubled. My growth, and it's done organic and to scale. So from break even, we doubled our revenues, and our net profit is exceptionally high. And I still have one staff and myself, and I still
Mhm.
have my 1,000 square foot office. So I didn't expand to 3,000 square feet. I didn't add extra personnel. I didn't add, massage therapy or any kind of other ancillary things like that. And so the practice has doubled, and it's stayed that way. And now we hit a max. And at that max now, what we're doing is we're just kind of eking out that extra little 5 or 10% that puts, as this old farmer said, that cream on top of the milk there. And that's kind of where we're at with the practice now.
Yeah. So one of the things that chiropractors face is not every patient out there is going to go to a chiropractor. The stat I've heard is about 15 to 20% of the patients or the population will go to a chiropractor. So why are they not coming into chiropractors? What are some of the reasons, Dr. Larry, do you think?
So this is where we got to tighten up our chin straps a little bit, as they say in football. We've got to calm down a little bit of the indoctrination we have about who we are as chiropractors and what we think we are, because there's a public out there, and I said, I'll go with the stats, Bry. 80% that will never, their whole
Mhm.
life, ever come in to see you as a chiropractor. They just won't. And there are reasons for that. Those reasons are valid. A lot of them are valid. And those people, though, do need your care and service, but they will go a lifetime without ever seeing you. And so what I want to do is I want to start to help you understand. Some of these will sound familiar, but when I came out of chiropractic school, and I recognized, because I know I wasn't a chiropractic patient growing up. I was, in fact, probably the opposite. I was an naysayer. And then by happenstance, I decided to go to chiropractic school. And that's kind of a short, funny story, actually. But the bottom line is I go, okay, how would a chiropractor convince me, or how would I need to be instructed and taught to go in to see a chiropractor and really believe that they have some value or something? So there's a public perception. I want to go through that first before we get into some of our 3 points. Okay. Yeah. So the true feeling is the bulk majority of the public. And when I qualify this statement, this isn't your gung-ho chiropractic patient that sees you right now. This isn't the cheerleader that makes your day, that comes in and tells you how great you are because you fixed your back up. This isn't some of your holistic practitioner colleagues out there, or people that just don't like to take pills. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the public that renders their feeling without telling you, but they'll tell other people. The people that you never get to hear talk about. The one that judges us as chiropractors without you ever getting a chance to handle those judgments. That's that type of patient. So here's what they perceive. And this is going to be a short list, but it's going to be about 5 to 10 things. They feel that your education, or our education, isn't as good as the MD's. They perceive that a physical therapist is more qualified to handle some of the musculoskeletal conditions that we handle. And no matter what you put into your name, your practice, your marketing, that we're just a bunch of backcrackers. They think, some of them think, that we're used car salesmen. They think we don't like doctors. They think our opinion on health is second rate or from another planet. They think we don't know how to read x-rays, MRIs, and some just tolerate us from a distance. They don't want to even be associated with us. And others know that once you go to a chiropractor, you always have to go, so they'll just stay away because they don't want to get caught in the vortex and the trap. Some think we'll break your neck, or some think that we'll break their neck. Some think that we're going to crush their vertebrae, and some think that we're going to stroke them out. So what's the point and the risk? That's the short list. And so the deal is that, and there's some other things as well too, the instruments that we use, they're less afraid of a needle going into their arm as they are the plunger thing that we use, the activator, to treat, because they know what the needle is. They don't know what this is. They're more afraid of the drop table mechanism because it's foreign to them. I'm talking about the naysayers. I'm talking about the people, the 80% plus that you can never tap into. They don't know what our tables are. They look like medieval tables. And so it's all this negativity that's swirling around their head, and they just draw this conclusion. They go, I ain't going. I'm not going to go see a chiropractor. I'd rather go to my doctor or do nothing at all, or see something else, or they have all these excuses swirling around. So that's, if we truly, honestly take a moment back, that's who these 80% of these people are. And I know that because I mentioned I'm one of them. I'm one of those people that had all that swirling around in my head prior to going to chiropractic school. And to be perfectly frank, my first experience at a chiropractor was not good. The guy cracked my neck without telling me. And from that moment forward, I never stepped foot back in his office, and almost wasn't going to go back into chiropractic. So then you might be thinking, well, how in the world did you become a chiropractor, Dr. Larry? And really, it was just kind of a quick, simple, like, well, I guess there's probably a better way to do it than I got it. And I like healthcare, and my family's a bunch of healthcare people. And so I'm going to go into chiropractic. And that's what I did. So now you think then too, going through chiropractic school, it would have actually helped some of the sentiment and the feeling. And when I found through chiropractic school is like, I could kind of take or leave chiropractic even for myself. I'm healthy. I feel good. I don't need it. Here I am, 51, 52 years old. And I can look back and say, overall, I didn't really even need chiropractic back then. But if I peel back those layers, what could I have been educated on about what a chiropractor is from that standpoint that would have at least planted the seed that if I did need a chiropractor, who would I go see? So that's kind of what we're going to start to build these points on. But we have to fundamentally recognize that 80% of these people out there, that they think this way, and it's a doctrine in their mind, and they believe it, and they're not going to come see you no matter what. Maybe they'll show up for a spinal screening, and maybe they'll come in for a visit or two, maybe, but otherwise they're not going to take care plans and they're going to leave. If we do the things that we are taught, the ways that we're instructed, and how to conduct care plans, and how we talk about chiropractic to these people, they won't stay. So that's where the tweaking needs to start to happen. And that's where the rewiring, as I mentioned, that starts to happen. So that's it. And I do want to qualify this. I kind of built this with people, at least in first year, at least you got a year on your belt chiropractic. Maybe you're 5 years in, maybe you're 10 years in, maybe you're 20 years in or more like me. These are concepts that I want you to help understand 1 year plus. If you're coming out or you're in school right now and you're listening to this, then these are some of the things that if the earlier you face them, the better off you will be, because you're going to be able to tap into this market of these 80% of the people. So I'm sorry, I'll apologize that this isn't the feel-good version of a show, but it's also the very adult version of what we have to face as far as the public goes. And if we face that, then we can be adult with them and we can start to talk to them in a language they understand. And that's the essence of what they say. So to build into the point is perception, the public perception about chiropractic. And that's the first point I wanted to make as far as starting to scale your office. The good stuff we know. And that's tend to where we want to focus. We want to focus on what makes us feel good. We want to focus on the rah-rah stories out there. If something is positive in the news and it's about chiropractic, we tend to latch on that and talk about it forever. But the reality is that stuff has a shelf life and it fizzles and fades, and it tends to kind of resurface itself all the time. I mean, how many times can you see low back pain chiropractic works? How many times can you maybe get a story out there where somebody got something fixed at a chiropractor's office, and then again the shelf life is over. Unfortunately, right now, what's also happening is we have YouTube and we have a lot of this clickbait that's going on, where you see these people just getting racked and it gets a million hits, and we think that's good. For what that does and that purpose, it's got a sensational component to it. I understand. I mean, let's face it, cracking somebody's spine can have a little bit of a fun appeal to it. But for the public that I'm talking about, that freaks them out. That terrifies them. These Y-strap adjustments, these ring dingers you see out there. I mean, all that stuff that's out there on YouTube that people are watching and looking to, the people that look over that and see that or even click on that, they're also going, and that's why I ain't going. That actually reinforces their point as well, too. So identifying this public perception out there, this market of people that won't have a discussion with you, it's that perception that we have to etch in our mind. Because if you understand that, if you believe in part what I'm telling you, and you're willing to address that part, then we can go on to the next 2 points. And I hope you stay with these next 2 points, because this is where it does actually really gather some traction and get some fun.
Got it. So perception, it's how the public is perceiving the chiropractor. What's the next point then, Dr. Larry?
So understanding that internally, you need to start in your office and with yourself and with your next patient. I'm going to run through a couple scenarios here. And these scenarios I've been doing for the greater part of 20 years being in practice. And by the way, let me qualify this. I started out in practice from scratch. Had no patients. And my wife was my office manager. And I started out the traditional way. So I know what the traditional way does. I sold that practice after 2.5 years and went to the corporate world, came back into practice, and I've been doing it this way for 18 years since. And I can tell you, living both directions, this is the way that is much more healthy, much more organic, and much more peaceful and satisfying. So, okay, so let's start with, because sometimes the phone's not ringing. Maybe you're 2 years in, 3 years in, or maybe your phone's ringing like crazy because you've done a good job marketing, got patients coming through. But here, I want you to hear this through as far as what we know, the language we understand. Care plans. Traditional care plan, when somebody comes in to see you, whether they're reactivation or they're a new patient, we set up this report of findings, we sell and tell them, and we preload them with all these visits that they need to come in for. And then we have a financial commitment that they are supposed to make with us. And they've got to keep this structured appointment. So easy, 3 times a week for the first 3 weeks, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, blah, blah, blah. And now we got their 10 weeks mapped out for them. And then we have, this is what their insurance is going to pay, and this is what they're responsible for. Okay. That's the traditional way. That works. It does work. The change is this. And this is kind of where the person that you talk to that's in your office goes back to where they live. They go back to their friends and associates. This 80% public is this way. After you do a care or a initial consult, a report of findings, a new patient exam, you take it visit by visit. So basically what you're doing is you're breadcrumbing with people. You say, you know what, we got this, that, and the other. We can tell we got a problem here. It's your back, it's sciatica, it's a stiff neck. What I'd like to do is schedule with my front desk. I've got some spots next week. Maybe grab one or two of them. And then from there, let's kind of see how you're doing. And let's reevaluate you every visit, just as we're talking, not a full reevaluation. And what I want to do from you is a patient, and I'm speaking on a patient, I'm communicating to the patient, is as you improve or don't improve, at least visit by visit, we can start to judge that. So you could be done in 1 visit, 2 visits, or 10. We don't know yet. And let's let your body and your symptoms and also your function decide how that's going to go. So instantly what that does, it puts a little bit of a peace of mind to the patient that they're not going, oh, I got to be here for 10 weeks. They might be there for 10 weeks. They might be there for 2 weeks. They might be there for somewhere in between there. So it starts to put this ease of mind. Also, you're not selling them on anything other than, I just need you to come for the next visit. And they go, I can commit to that. If you go, I need you to come for the next 18 visits. Human beings are difficult to commit to a lot of things. And so the reality is that they're committing visit by visit. They end up making that 18th visit fairly well. So going back to the nuts and bolts of my practice, we have between a 1% to 3% no-show rate and a roughly a 5-ish% cancellation rate before some of the metrics that we included with ChiroSpring, which has even brought that number down more comfortably as I'm getting some data points. So the patients come for their visits because they want to be here. And that's some of the other things I tell patients at the beginning is I'll go, we're going to go visit by visit, but I only want you here if you want to be here. So if you walk through that door, I'm going to assume that you want to be here and you want me to work on you. So that's kind of it. I keep the care plan and the report of findings very simple. One great business person that I studied for a long time a while back was keep it simple like an 8-year-old. Even if it's a highly intellectual person, they still don't know much about chiropractic. What you do, treat them and talk to them like you're an 8-year-old. I just need you to show up to the playground at 5 o'clock next week so we can play for a few minutes, essentially is what I'm telling them, but I'm in a care plan. And that's kind of a big thing, report findings. So you can start with the report of findings is just visit by visit. That leads to higher compliance and them following through with their care plan. The second thing, as far as scaling your practice goes, from an internal standpoint, we'll get to external. From an internal standpoint, is cracking the spine. Now, this is gonna step on some toes, but hear me out. Traditional, like I mentioned, is clickbait, rack and crack, snap. I mean, yeah, it's sensational that we are licensed to be able to make noise out of somebody's spine. Okay, it's cool. I mean, and there's some elements to that, and it adjusts. It does this adjustment thing that we are all trained to do, and it's part of our board certification. We have to be competent to be able to crack a spine. The public out there that doesn't think that's cool, the public out there that thinks you're going to break their neck if you do it 1 time, 2 times, or 20 times, or that you're going to make their ligaments too loose if you keep cracking their spine, or maybe they're scared you're going to stroke them out. They don't know when they come into your office if they're going to lose control. So some of the conversations I've had with patients who never would have stepped foot into a chiropractor's office, and I know in a traditional sense people say that a lot. I'm talking about those people that actually truly never come in. These are some of the comments they told me. So what I do right away when somebody's coming in, new patient or referred in, is I go, what do you feel about your spine getting cracked? What do you think about it? I mean, let's just use the terms. And they go, I'm not quite sure. I go, well, if you're unsure about it, there are other ways for me to comfortably adjust your neck or your back where I can fix what I need to fix without ever having to make a noise out of your spine. And I go, and I would prefer to use my hands. And I know that there are other tools I might have to use, and I'll explain those tools. But the bottom line is what I want to start out with you is let's not crack. On the flip side of it, I get a lot of patients from other chiropractic offices, sad to say too, in that regard. And they'll come in and say, okay, Dr. So-and-so, they always adjusted my neck like this, face up. And my first question, usually after I get to see them, is, well, what did you think about that? And how'd you feel? And their head sinks down. And they go, well, I never really liked it, but I just didn't feel comfortable saying it. And you're a professional, so I figured I was safe. I go, okay, but did you feel safe? And I can tell right now you might not be safe. No, I really don't. I don't like that, Dr. Larry. I go, so I can tell you I got a different way and I can help you out with that. And their eyes light up and their body posture changes. And it's almost like I gave them a whole new way of thinking. And from that point forward, we build a relationship. Then they go back, by the way, that patient or these patients, they go, by the way, did you know that Dr. Larry doesn't have to crack your spine and he can still fix you? Do you know he won't torque and twist your neck? And that starts to build as far as that organic growth that we're talking about under this second point. So the cracking thing is one of those conversations. And as you're picking up on this is a lot of just one-on-one conversations with patients with these negative things that swirl around that you think that they are telling you everything, but they're not, because you have to pull it out of them. And when you do that and you create a comfortable environment, and basically to reframe this too, what I'm doing for these people is I'm going, I'm just like you. So why don't we talk about this? And let's talk about this guy sitting here who's this chiropractor, Dr. Larry. Let's talk about him for a second. Can you trust him? So that's what it is. You've got to get yourself, I say, out of our profession and into their frame of mind and start asking questions as far as that goes. I know we'd mentioned briefly at the beginning too about the fact that what I had done in a previous, as far as career goes, I jumped into chiropractic. I worked at law firms and I also worked at a private investigative firm. So before I went to chiropractic school, I spent about 2 to 3 years doing undercover investigations, talking to witnesses. And they sometimes knew I was investigating them, sometimes they didn't. And what I found, in order to get a witness to cooperate with you, is you have to be able to be relatable to them. And it's a very genuine way, because you need to get information and you have to get the information to help understand a case. And sometimes people want to withhold information. They're scared to give you information. Same thing happens when it comes to stuff like what I'm talking about right now. You've got to give them this space so they feel comfortable to not hurt your feelings, and give them the opportunity to be able to speak in that regard. So cracking is a big thing. Organic growth from a health history standpoint. So we take health history. We're trained to do so. And within a patient's health history, it's all about them. And there's a lot of information in the health history. So I'm shifting over to a second point. Traditionally speaking, the way that we're told and instructed is we take a health history from a patient, and then we begin to try to automatically tell them how we can fix them through an adjustment, a supplement, a gadget, a tool. We just start matching up their history and complaints, and then we try to have everything we have to frame that in and go, okay, I've got this, this, and this, and based on your health history, I can do this, this, and this, and then we set them up with it. The change is this. Look for things that you can't treat and expand dialogue there, because it's still important to them. For example, I have elderly patient comes in. I go, how was your last doctor's visit? What did you guys talk about? And it could be, well, I had this festering wound right here. Do you see this bandage and it's leaking? Well, now it's not leaking anymore. It has zero to do what I can help them out with. But they start talking about that. And I go, okay, did they run any follow-up tests, et cetera? So then what it is you're going from a clinical standpoint, you're going, I'm interested also in what is going on in the health history from a chiropractor. And then what happens is it starts to open up their mind to going that my chiropractor not only cares about trying to fix me with what they can do, they want to understand more about what's going on with me is from a healthcare standpoint. So I spend a lot of time on talking about rashes, wounds, certain things that I guess would kind of be closer to what we could help or fix, labs, going over labs. What did you notice on a spike in your labs? Then it gets into medication. Then that medication starts going to a whole nother. So now all of a sudden, now you're starting to get into the mix of the person's healthcare. And then they turn around, they ask you, So what do you think about that blood pressure medication I'm on, Dr. Larry? And I go, well, let's talk about lisinopril for a second. How long have you been on it for? So now it starts to change. The relationship starts to solidify. They go back to their husband, spouse, wife, their friends. They go to their camps. That's how it's big up here. And they go, by the way, I was at my chiropractor's office today, and we were talking about my blood pressure medication. Not how bad it was. We just were talking about it. So it's this dialogue that you're basically opening up with patients from their health history. And that involves endless conversations that circles back around to grow you organically, because then they start coming back. Oh, I want to make an appointment with my chiropractor or Dr. Larry, or Dr. whoever. And I want to talk to him about this in addition to my visit. So I do a lot of that. I do a lot of adjustment plus. And then guess what? I bill out for that. I bill out for that code. I bill out for the time. I bill out for the service. And they pay for it. They're happy to pay for it because they weren't told and sold, and we're addressing an issue. So that would be one thing as far as traditional versus change. Imaging reports is probably one of the easiest things that you could possibly do to talk to patients about. And it's right there in front of us. And traditionally, we get our imaging. We go through their problems in their spine or their hips, and we go, this is the measurements, or this is where I see the problem is. And then we start talking about how chiropractic based on the imaging can fix it. And then maybe we talk about some arthritis, but really what it is, we're moving on past what the imaging says as far as anything else goes. What I like to do in the health history, and which has contributed substantially to even expanding into other healthcare practitioners like physicians, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, urgent care, primary care. A lot of them, I even have, we have a kind of just ongoing dialogue throughout the week, is I'll take and interpret. I'll say, do you understand this imaging report that I have here from Dr. So-and-so? And they go, you know what? They just told me I had this. I got a call from a nurse. That was it. I go, would you like me to explain the terms for you and break them down for you so you understand what it means in English? 99% of them want it. And I go, okay, let's spend a few minutes. Let's talk about these terms. And all I did, what we're trained, medical terminology, let's break down these terms. I've done it with brain scans. I had, those are some of the worst imaging reports. The one lady says, I saw this doctor and he said all these big words I didn't understand. I said, I'll explain them to you. And at the time we were done, I said, I'm going to make it Sesame Street simple for you about what these MRI brain scans actually mean in term. And I do imaging interpretation for people. Sometimes it's just literally the terminology being used. And then the other side of the equation, it's, have you seen it? So a lot of times medicine loves imaging, CT scans, MRIs, X-rays. They love X-rays like we do. And I'll ask them, the patient, even if it's a patient that I know for a long time, because this is new patients and old patients, new patients and this is everybody. Have you had any imaging done since the last time I've seen you? Oh yeah, I went and saw so-and-so and I had an elbow done. I go, okay, let me pull the report that they explained to you. No. Have you seen it? No. You will find they rarely see the reports. They're usually just called by the nurse, or the doctor says, yeah, everything's looks good. And I'll go over the imaging. And even if it looks good, they go, oh, I'm so glad to see. They like to see themselves on film. That's what an elbow looks like, huh? And they kind of, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's what an MRI looks like. And I go, right. Yeah, I'm glad you could see this because I think your insurance paid for it. That seeing it says more than even hearing it as far as terminology goes. And I'll say, by the way, do you want me to explain what the radiologist said too? Who they never see. A radiologist sits in a dark room. They don't know who these people look like, what they are. You, the chiropractor, they see us all the time, or we, the chiropractor. So imaging is a huge part of opening up dialogue for patients. And what it does is it begins to expand the services that you can offer your patients when you start to drum up that type of dialogue. So imaging is one of the main tools I use that hits right in the sweet spot of the bat for what we do as far as chiropractors go. And so that's kind of where it's at. I've got, and I do want to spend even a little bit more time, Brian, if we have a moment on this second point, how it tails into the specialist. So I have had over the years neurosurgeons with their personal cell phones that said, even if I'm in the OR, you can call me, and they'll step out of the OR so I can talk to them. I've had a neurosurgeon take a picture of a lumbar disc removal on his visual scope after he got done to send it to me to show off, hey, look, I took that chunk of disc out for your patient, relieved the L5 transverse nerve root. Isn't that cool? I'm like, yeah, good job, So, and I go home and I'll tell my wife, hey, babe, take a look. This is a patient I sent today, and this doctor just sent me the fit. So they like their show and tell too. And they get pretty excited when they fix stuff or they put hardware in, because again, patients are going to have surgery. So when it comes to the imaging side of the equation, if something pops up that you're trained to see, you go, okay, I saw that you saw orthopedic ABC or neurosurgeon or primary care. A lot of it's primary care. Do you mind if I call your primary care up real quick? And so I just have a quick dialogue. And it's not you're calling them up to tell them you missed something or you're wrong about this. It's just to clarify a point. Is, hey, by the way, so and so is in here. I see they got a bulge disc. What are you doing? What do you think is the care plan? You got them on a Medrol dose pack? No, I didn't do a Medrol dose pack. Do you think I should order up one? Yeah, the disc is still a little hot. I'm calming it down with some cold laser. Let's say if you got that in your office. In my case, I'm doing some traction. Maybe in a visit or two, let's taper it down with a little Medrol dose. If you're okay with it, the patient's okay taking it. Or maybe the patient doesn't like or can't take steroids. Maybe the doctor even asks you, is there any supplements they can take? Because they don't know. And then you kind of have that dialogue there. So really what it is you're opening up the dialogue coming from the history standpoint that you're taking on patients. And from there, you're starting to make phone calls. I'm going to give you another example of something that just happened last week. I had to send a patient to urgent care. She had an adverse reaction to Augmentin. And her upper right thoracic swelled up like crazy. She was taking Augmentin, and she came in with a stiff neck and a bit of torticollis because the adverse reaction caused that as well too. She's in her mid 60s. She had some other health issues. I said, here's the bottom line. I'm going to start helping out with the soft tissue aspect, but why don't you go get checked out at urgent care real quick? And then cross some T's, dot some I's. It was the weekend. I said, there's nothing I can do to help control the pain. See if urgent care give you anything to control the pain for the weekend so you're comfortable, because she wasn't sleeping. So she goes down there and she gets some medication. She got an injection in her shoulder. And next week she came back in here. She was about 50% better. I was able to have her put warm compress on her neck. And so by the third visit in my office and probably 5 days, she was 99% better from an adverse reaction. Mm-hmm. I called up the urgent care doctor, MD physician. Call him and I said, this is Dr. Larry, Chiropractic Crystal Falls, get through, big healthcare facility, huge up here. I got a patient that saw Dr. So-and-so. Got a moment. I want to take a minute to talk to her about it. So she picks up the phone. Hey, how you doing? I was like, this is Dr. Larry. I said, you saw so-and-so. She goes, yes. I go, guess what? Your medication worked. I had her put some warm compress. I did some manipulation, not hard cracking. And she goes, oh, good. And I go, and she's 99% better. We got 100% medical maximum improvement. And she goes, well, thank you for calling me, Dr. Larry. Never talked to this urgent care doctor before. And I said, let me ask you a question, Dr. Urgent Care. How many practitioners call you back after you see them in the urgent care and let you know how they're doing? She goes, nobody does. She goes, we never know. And she goes, so thank you for doing that. I'll make sure I tell the staff. I go, all right, so guess what? Anybody else will call you. So there all of a sudden becomes a new dialogue. Now this MD that runs this urgent care for this big hospital, and again, I've been up here for 18 years, so this is stuff I don't stop doing. I've never met this physician before. She never knew my name. In fact, I'll be honest with you, she was a little abrupt and curt with the patient when they said I was sending her in for an Augmentin reaction. She said, I'd never seen that before. So when I circled back around, I said, by the way, I said, that was an adverse reaction. She's like, oh, really? She goes, I've never seen it before. I go, well, I've seen a handful of them, and that's what it is. She goes, well, thank you. So now it became an educational piece. Who is that urgent care doctor going to refer to when it comes to chiropractic on a case like that? Every single patient coming in that may mention chiropractor, she's going to pivot them because of that one conversation. That is within every chiropractor's power to do so. It's a genuine way to handle practice patients and be able to handle. And it's really overall wonderful care for its continuity of care. And it was literally a 5-minute phone call. Sometimes they won't pick up. Sometimes I had one guy right next door to me, actually, said, I'm not going to be speaking to him anymore. He's gone. He did his 3 years. He's out of here. And the funny thing about it is the patients that know me, they started to essentially turn on him because they go, well, why wouldn't you talk to Dr. Larry? He needs to talk to you about stuff. And they actually said, well, I guess I need to find another physician. That's fact. And now he's gone. So the deal is, if you have such an ironclad relationship with your patients, they reinforce it, and they also then will pivot it back on the physician if they're misbehaving, as far as that goes. So you're gonna take some hits as far as it goes. But if you're genuine, honest, and sincere when you're talking to your patients, and you're trying to get involved in their care without muscling through, let me tell you how great chiropractic is and why I'm going to fix the subluxation. You leave that out of the equation up front, and you just handle it from this perspective that is out there in the public. That's a huge way to do so. So there's literally hundreds of scenarios that honestly I could spend time on. And I'm just going to wrap this up a little bit of some of the cases too that I think are fun cases that we as chiropractors, when we're in school and we have these dreamy thoughts, or we're in practice, go, how come I don't get these cases anymore? Adverse reaction to COVID, I want to say injection, but COVID vaccine. I've worked on those cases, multidisciplinary approach with doctors. Missed cancer on an x-ray. I called the radiologist back. I said, hey, by the way, take a look at that L3. He's looked at it. He said, yep, just looks like it's a little weird. I said, right. I followed up with an MRI in this case because of the way the case presented. And that is actually metastatic cancer coming from the breast on this patient. The radiologist was silent for about a minute. And he said, thank you for calling me. I'll make sure I double look at these down the road in the future. I said, hey, I'm not calling to beat you up. I just want to let you know, I would want you to have my back if I missed it. And he from that moment forward, anytime I sent scans over to test, he was wonderful to me. Stethoscope. I have a stethoscope in my office. How often do I use it? 6 times a year. One time, a physician sent a patient over to me and said, I think your rib is out. Go see Dr. Larry. So again, this goes back into the health history side, where you can start to grow your office organically. And the person had some lung issues. And I said, did the doc listen to your lungs? And she said, no. I said, well, let me listen to your lungs a little bit. I said, look, they are better at it than I am. Let me see if I can hear anything. So I heard some gurgles. I heard some stuff that didn't sound good that literally I could teach you, Brian, in 5 minutes. Oh, you'd be like, hey, that doesn't sound right. And I sent her back and I said, hey, go back and tell them I heard this. So that she went back and they said, oh, it's pneumonia, Dr. Larry. I said, now the chiropractor came into play. I said, okay, they said it's pneumonia. Let me feel this rib a little bit more. And the rib started to shift like this really bad. And it started to grind. And I said, you know what? Pneumonia doesn't really do this to a rib. Why don't you go back again? Ended up being lung cancer, that there was a fracture in the rib. If I would have adjusted that rib, per the physician who referred her in, we would have been in trouble. The doctor from this point forward, anytime I have a patient that comes through his office, harkens back to that case. And we got the lady, she got on chemo, she got everything that she needed. She ended up living for about 3 to 4 years, longer than she probably would have. But it was just a simple stethoscope, a little sound, and then the chiropractic, what we're trained to do, feel with our hands and feel the rib. This is all in the health history. This is all within your context. This is all within your wheelhouse. That public perception that is negative begins to turn on a dime. Right. That is why doing this hundreds and thousands of times now, over and over again, I do not have to worry about my next marketing tactic. I don't have to worry about how I'm going to react to a patient I haven't seen in 6 months. I don't have to worry about a patient taking a care plan. And I rarely have to worry about somebody not paying for their bill if they receive good and fair care. That's what I'm talking about as far as the second fundamental way. I hope some of the grab and go points you'll understand, because I got a third point I want to tie up here in just a second. Brian, is there any questions you have about that? Because the third point is kind of the external, and I'm just going to touch on that as we start to wrap things up here. But it's an expanded
no questions, Dr. Larry, but it sounds like you're growing an organic practice. You're showing your patients that you care. You're putting them in control. So when they come in, maybe they do need a long care plan, but hey, you know what? We're going to go visit to visit because I want to prove to you or show you that I am going to make progress. I don't want to, lock you into a long contract right from the beginning. So the patients immediately get trust. The way you talk to the patients, they are trusting you. You're using terminology that makes sense for them. Like you said, you're talking to them like, they're on a playground.
Yep.
All of those points make perfect sense. I feel calm just by listening to your strategy. So, what's the next point then, Dr. Larry?
So handling those internal things, and I do want to tell you, because this doesn't have the sugar to it. It's not like when you do this, you're going to get 5 new patients next week doing this. It's a bit of a slow process. It takes time for people to develop this understanding. But what you're doing is you're building the trust component. You can put trust your name. Uh, number one trusted chiropractor in the county. That means not, the word trust means nothing. The word becomes something when they begin to understand it and feel it. So it's not that's why I'm not doing the hype sell job to you right now, even in the show, because how to get 5 new patients next week, that's not it. That's not the way to do it. But there are some really neat things you can start to do that can start to generate some business on top of this, that ties directly into this, which is the third fundamental point, is your external marketing. So in every community and county, there are areas that people tend to flow and go to. Okay. You have to understand where those are at. I had a practice, like I mentioned, in Lower Michigan. Now I have a practice up here in the Upper Peninsula. And we're all kind of like a herd mentality. Like, we like to congregate in certain places, up here it's at camps. People got their camps. Thursday night is card night for ladies. They got their Wednesday, Thursday golf. They do, leagues up here during the summer. Hunting season's coming. So there's just these places, but there's also a place they tune into. And you got to find that area where your public is at. So like in Lower Michigan, where there was a lot more people and a lot more static, there were multiple areas where kind of the public just went. And that's where you have to start to build your external marketing based on some of the components that I gave you. And this has to be in your style too. We're all a little different. You don't want to go outside your style. Maybe some people are a little more animated. Maybe some people are a little less animated. So I'm not trying to buck your style. You have to kind of figure out your style. What I did strategically, and this is just kind of help you understand, is we have a main road that comes into our town here. There's a main artery, say it that way. And I eyeballed that there's this billboard up front there that the hospital had. And this is probably 15 years ago. And I thought, if that billboard ever comes up, I'm going to find out about it. So the billboard came up. The hospital changed names, and they decided to let the lease on the billboard go. It was blank. I called up right away, found out who the guy was, and being a patient who actually just wanted a call to come in here. He owned the billboard. And I said, how much is the billboard? And so he told me it was reasonable. And so I said, perfect. I'm going to get a billboard. I've had that billboard now for 15 years. It's simple. And I'm going to touch on some of this external marketing. It's a 3-second. Right now, people are going by that billboard as they come into town. It's my picture with Dr. Larry and chiropractor underneath it. 3 elements is it. 3 seconds is all you have on a billboard, but it's constant, 24/7, day in and day out. My mug is sitting out there on that main artery, and you can't come into this town without seeing my mug. And I'm not saying with some cheesy smile. Also, I didn't do, and this is not against bankers, I didn't do the suit and tie banker look. Just I got a sweater on with some jeans, my hands in my pocket, and big letters, Dr. Larry. And in our next next show, I'll bring that out so you can see what it looks like. Chiropractor.
Nice.
Real simple, clean marketing that happens all the time. So people come in and they go, oh, Dr. Larry, Dr. Larry. It's a branding thing. Okay. That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is actually where it gets into more of like style and where you can build your message as far as the of handling the negative public perception, is in our county here, the radio is still much listened to, terrestrial radio, FM radio. So 12 years ago, I think it's been now 11 years ago, I went to, when I was done with like internal, making sure that all of my systems are right, making sure that my message got out, I never marketed for 7 years. And then I went to the radio station and I said, I've got a message that I want to give to the public, but I have nothing to sell them. I just want to be able to start to educate the public in 60-second to 90-second formats about stuff that pertains to them. And the station manager at the time goes, why don't we call it Did You Know with Dr. Larry? I go, I like it. So from that point forward, what I did was I built a brand underneath that phrase, Did You Know with Dr. Larry? And what is it? I started covering all types of things that the negative public needs or wants to hear. So we've got a few minutes left. I like to run through some of these topics so you can hear them in your mind to hear how I handle it. Because now I've been on the radio for 11 years. It's my only tool that I use besides the billboard. And it's grown into from a 5-minute segment to a 15-minute segment years ago to during COVID when everybody was shut down. They asked me to take live calls on the air because at that point in time, they really liked the segment. I took live calls on the air for a couple of years during COVID. I'm answering phone. People are calling in live. I'm answering this, that, and the other about that. Then they offered me a spot on the regular programming to where now I have a full hour show and people advertise on my show and I no longer pay for the advertising. So if you want to talk about scaling your office organically, the value of the radio that I get right now is it's not affordable. I still had to pay for radio at the beginning, but now what I get because of all the effort that I put in, that doesn't increase my cost anymore. And the radio, by the way, was a fixed amount of money. Is now exponentially has given back, and it's been huge. And it taps into this public that doesn't want to ever go to a chiropractor that comes in, and now our chiropractic patients. I just went on a show, so I'll give you some quick hit. I got about 2 minutes here. Mobic. People take Mobic, meloxicam. Brian, I think you said you have a pharmacy background, so you know what that is, right? So my style is I always like to rhyme. I like Dr. Seuss, and that's kind of what I'm known by. So, like my liner to open up my show is Mobic, meloxicam, thank you, ma'am, because this NSAID is a grand slam. And that's how I started out the segment. And I started to talk about for reducing inflammation, how Mobic works, and then tied it into a close of the side effects, what to watch out for. And by the way, don't run out and ask your doctor because you heard this on Dr. Larry. Talk to them about this. So now I'm in the discussion with people about Mobic. I've also done the same thing for Medrol Dose Pack, which a lot of us know what that is. It's prednisone, so opposite of NSAID. Then one show I did anesthesia. It's not amnesia, but it does knock you out for medical procedures, which you know about. And I tied that anesthesia discussion about elective surgeries for elderly people, let's say a bone-on-bone knee at 82 years old, understanding what an anesthesia can do. The knee might be fixed, but the head isn't, and they have an anesthesia wash. I went into actual patient cases where mom, dad got a knee at 82, and all of a sudden their brain wasn't right from anesthesia. It wasn't a deterrent. It was just a talking point about that. SNAP, what was that? That was another one I just did, which is talking about I have elderly people that snap rotator cuffs, they snap tendons in the back of their knee, they snap butt muscles, and they go, Dr. Larry, it sounded like a buckshot. Oh, snap, what was that? So I just took terms they used and I created a segment out of that. So I built a segment out of that. I did a chest pain segment about yard work and a guy that had a heart attack and what happened there. So the point is what I'm saying is if you can find your market, if you can find where they are at, you can begin to build a message and talk to this public and stuff that you know about, that after a while, it's you as a chiropractor that are educating them on these terms, and they begin to go, that you're at the top of their mind when it comes to, I want to go see him for my back because he talked to me about meloxicam, or he talked to me about, so that's, as far as the 3 ways to scale your practice, it starts with understanding the fundamental first that I talked about. It's getting through what's already there in front of you as far as the patient in your office, the report of findings, and how to tweak that from traditional sense, and then your external marketing, which we'll get into on another show coming up.
That's great, Dr. Larry. So it sounds like we can, this is going to take time. It's like going on a diet. You're not going to lose 50 pounds overnight. We're building habits that are going to make our practice successful over time. So thank you, Dr. Larry. I really appreciate you for joining the show today. Like you said, we'll be here next month for another show. And as I mentioned, we're going to send this out in the email. So if you guys had to step away for a patient, you can play catch up or watch this again. Great information, Dr. Larry. Thank you so much for being with us today. Everybody, have a great day.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Brian.